adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to a place called Hell's Half Acre. I don't think it's as bad as it sounds, but it's on this really busy highway. This is the 15, and it is a free stop that you can make on your way between Idaho Falls and Blackfoot. This is going to be interesting. This is the Blackfoot rest area, and you can see on the map that we are in this lower section of Idaho, right along the 15 here, just a short distance between Blackfoot and Idaho Falls. Okay, so inside they just have a little couple pieces of information, but outside is where the real action happens. So we're gonna go on a trail today, and it is a lava trail. This is gonna be so fun. At the same time, it's pretty warm, so I'm gonna go grab some water and then we'll get to it. Okay, have my water. Now let's go for a little bit of a walk. This is Hell's Half Acre Trail, and there are two trails. So we can go around this lower loop, and that's only a quarter mile. It's easy, wheelchair accessible, 25 minutes max. Or we can do the big loop, which is half a mile, moderately difficult. It has a slope of 12% in some areas, and they suggest about 45 minutes. Along the way, there are signs, lots and lots of signs. So I thought this was a great way for us to get out here and just hike around. I'm going to do at least the lower, just so you guys can see what it is. And then we're probably gonna go up the moderate also, because it takes you directly into the lava over here, which is gonna be really, really fun. So I'm very excited about this, but it all starts with a single step. So let's get moving. Could we live here? The conditions are harsh at the high desert and get up to 90 degrees. Ooh, we better be careful for this guy. But also we learn about the rocks of this area, and it says that these are actually all from lava oozing. And the only place that we can really find something that is like this is over at the craters of the moon. But if we want to see it in real action, Hawaii or Iceland, because those are the places that still have the active volcanoes that are currently blasting off. So this is formed from something like that happened a long time ago, and now it has settled and turned into this weird, like, geological formation that has all sorts of cool, interesting things for us to learn. It says, what do Idaho and Hawaii have in common? And it says ropey lava coils show us that this was a very hot fluid flow, but not the volcano itself. The surface was the first to cool, and it formed this wrinkly skin that we see in front of us right here, and then everything below the surface just kept on moving. Now here we learned that a pool of lava drained beneath, and you can see the illustration so you can see kind of what it looks like. And it would leave unstable tunnels and caves and depressions. And then also the crust would just collapse because it was thin. And what did that mean for the animals? Well, moisture was then able to collect in those areas, and it created an area so that if you look inside of some of these cracks, you might find a living habitat. Now on the video, I realized this doesn't look too crazy. It just looks like a bunch of scrubby brushes, some crazy rocks, some pathways, and some signs. But here in person, you can really see the difference in how the landscape changes as you drive up. There's a whole section that's just flat farmland, and then there's this, which looks like a crag of darkness. It's the best way to explain it. And it's pretty neat to come from that lush green potato farming over here to this, where it's just like, it looks kind of like the moon. It's pretty interesting. Then we get to learn about this. Soil must form before a plant can grow. And in order for that to happen, the lichen, the fungus, and the algae have to produce salts that break down the rocks. And when they break down the rocks, it starts to form a very small layer of soil. Have you ever noticed that sometimes whenever you get to a place, you'll see a tree growing out of a rock? That's because inside a tiny little crevice, there's a tiny little bit of soil. And that's all it takes for something to live. It's kind of amazing to see how life persists even in the most horrific of conditions. But here we learn why. And there's quite a bit more to go. Let's keep going. Again, path here is accessible to everybody, which is great. It's nice and wide. It's one-way traffic, so it gets you out of the confusion of people coming and going at the same time. As we keep going, there are a few areas where the bushes have just like started to come over a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty clear. I'm just making sure we scan back and forth for those sneaky snakes. Tons of grasshoppers out here, but otherwise, not too crazy so far. They do recommend that only foot traffic goes on the long loop, so we'll do a little bit of that, and if it starts to get too warm, then we'll circle back. But I do want to see what they have to offer. So this way we go. There are signs throughout the entirety of the trail saying, please stay on the trail for our safety. So that's what we're gonna do. Oh, but that looks neat. That's like a little crevice that's formed a cave. So that could be a habitat for something. Ooh! I did notice there was a dead bat in the parking lot. So I know there are some bats in this area. So maybe they live in there. Maybe. We're gonna keep on going though and see what else we can find. This is a really nice way to just get out at a rest stop and walk around, absolutely free, get to learn some things, get some new brain wrinkles. And I love stops like this. It's amazing to see how life has taken over in even the worst of conditions though. This is just a crack in the lava on the top, and there's trees growing all out of it. It's kind of hard to imagine. At one point in time, this had nothing on it other than just the black, charred looking surface. And now all of these plants are here again. So it makes for a really interesting and unique landscape. Now, this rock, it's very porous. If you were to drive out into a section that was made out of stuff like this, it would tread up your tires pretty bad. I wouldn't walk on it. It probably wouldn't be so great for your feet either, or your shoes. But to know that even under all of those odds, that these plants can pop up and survive is pretty neat, to say the least. See a sign down here though, so let's make some footwork and get to it. Here we learn about a desert diet. It says smell the air and you will smell sage. And this is all of the little bushes and brush that we're seeing along the way. This shrub was important to the wildlife because it provides food, but it also provides cover. And in addition, it helped the Native Americans survive in the desert. It says here that they used these plants that we're seeing in front of us and they made clothing. They created medicines, teas. They burned the branches to keep warm. So all of this happened as a result of these plants and animals that are in this area that we're calling this home. It's pretty epic to see how even again, through the elements, you can have these amazing things happen. Wow. I can still hear the highway from here, but it's a little bit more in the distance, and you can start to hear some more of the chirping of the birds as you kind of drown out that sound. And so take some time when you're here and think about it. What would it have been like to have been here when cars weren't a thing? Can you imagine living on this rocky crag without shoes? Wouldn't have been the easiest. So fashioning things like shoes or like clothing to protect their bodies would have been very important. Wow. History is really cool, but history, whenever you add it to the story of nature, is even better. We have some more walking to do, but I'm going to show you some more of this beautiful place as we find our next sign. It's incredible. It's incredible to learn from different places and to think only yesterday I was in like a forest somewhere and now I'm standing on literally lava flow. Wild, right? Apparently water drains away very quickly in the combined packed lava, soil, and fractured rocks. And it asks, how do plants survive here? It mentions that a lot of them have elaborate root systems that allow them to suck up every drop that they can find. It's pretty neat. Oh wow, this is a huge crater here. This is epic. In both directions. The rocks of Hell's Half Acre are made of basalt, and they look different because basalt can cool into different textures and shapes. So it tells you to find the various kinds of shapes in this canyon right here. And right off, I can see so many. There's straight lines here. There's more of like a wavy texture over here. Oh, this is cool. You can see where it kind of melts down. Neat. Same thing on this side. You can see various textures and dimensions coming out as the rocks have moved. It looks like over here, for example, it looks like it kind of flowed downward, and you can see where there was like a wave of it flowing and then cooling while it was flowing. Of course, there's some more cave crevices. This is so neat. If you're not a person who loves geology, this might not be for you, but it's fascinating to see how it changes in each direction based on what was happening on the surface with that cooling. It's really cool. From this side all the way over across the path and to this side, this was one large crater of just movement and activity. And the crust here, you can see, just kind of does all sorts of different things. There's even a huge rift here that's big enough that realistically a person could probably go through that right there. That is huge. Wow. I can definitely see why they have said please stay on the path. This could be very dangerous because there are so many places people might want to explore with the caves, the crevices. But yeah, no. Snakes, danger. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay, so we're gonna walk over a crevice so you can see all the way down. And you can see what it looks like in this direction. It's just a huge crevice. But we are trying to get to that. So along the way, wow. Okay, we made it here. There's a little bit of a shade. We're gonna have a drink of water, and then we're gonna learn a little bit more about the flow here, the mountains we can see, and then also this sign. Okay, way out in the distance, it's a little harder to see because there's been some wildfires, but you can see a couple of mountains or buttes. They're called the Pilot Buttes by the French trappers, and they're about 25 to 40 miles away. But again, because of the smoke, it's a little harder to see them right now. Now, in comparison, this was said to be a butte as well, but it is a baby butte. And the baby butte is much more recent than those guys. But then in the opposite direction, it shows us the layout of the mountains, and it says that these are all majestically carved through the middle of the Snake River Plain. These you can see a little bit better. It tells you which mountains are which on this sign, and so that way you can kind of get your bearings on what's around you. Totally makes sense as to why they have this here now, so you can see above a little bit more. Very cool. More interestingly though, those buttes and those mountains were used to help navigate on the Oregon Trail, which means that we're right alongside where pioneers would have first come. Now, can you imagine people from other places that don't have volcanic stuff like this coming upon this and being like, what is this? Yeah, we have signs to explain it. They had nothing except for the moon, the stars, and some guidance from some ruts in front of them. And that was the ones who came along later. This is wild. I can't imagine what that would have been like. Probably would have been real confusing. But we're just gonna keep on swimming, as Nemo says. Or rather walking. Oh wow, I don't think that the camera quite shows you how deep this is. This goes way back in there. And then opens up to this pit over here. I have to say, it's probably around the same size as the pit we saw a while ago, but this pit, on the other hand, way bigger. This pit, we learn more about nature and how it is able to survive and survive through some pretty nasty things, including really, really bad winds that dry them out. And you can see, this looks like it just melted into itself. But inside, there are trees that are thriving. I mean, I'm sure you can hear in the video, even with me using the things that I do to help the audio out, there's still wind out here. Remember how we talked about caves and underground tunnels? Well, now animals use these as hiding places so that they can stay away from hunters. You can see here a little bunny seeking shelter away from a coyote. Just think, each one of these crevices could be concealing something that is hiding or trying to survive during the heat. And it needs a place for shelter. Before, I'll say it again, nature's incredible. To see how things are able to survive in such harsh elements, it's pretty intense to think about. But then to see stuff like this, so you can put it together and actually fathom what that looks like, it becomes even more intense. Now, while I've been out here, I've seen several birds that just randomly go and perch inside these caves. They're very fast, they're very small birds. I don't know what kind they are, but it seems as though they're calling this their home. And it's a pretty epic home, I must say. Look at all those little cubbies. Tiny little critters can fit in all of those little tiny cubbies. Now this asks us to ask ourselves what this place will look like in the future. It says that soil will continue to fill all the crevices, and in a few thousand years, sagebrush and grass might be all that we can see instead of the darkness here in the landscape. And I think that that's pretty interesting to know that life has those full circle moments. It just takes time and patience, and the entire landscape we look at today might not look anything like it does currently. You know, I've been to a lot of really neat places, and along the way, the history has said that they didn't always look like that. For example, the Grand Canyon. They think that at one point it started out pretty flat, and slowly water and wind eroded down into the Grand Canyon, what we now know it to be today. But this is a good way to engage ourselves with thinking, what's next? Not just for this property, but others. What comes of them? What will the future see? Which is why I do videos like this, so we can know what they look like in this time. Because in the future, we might be in a very different reality. It speaks to the both temporary and permanent nature of our thoughts. We think things are here and just going to be here forever, but in all reality, they aren't. And it's not just places like these. It's people, it's things, it's routines. And so that's why coming to places and then making that discovery of, oh yeah, things are going to change over time, kind of makes us realize that that's the story of life just in general. So we can learn from these places in so many different ways. Well guys, that's going to do it for us here at Hell's Half Acre. Now if you are coming out here, remember it does get pretty windy and pretty extreme. So wear good shoes, bring some water. It's not a super long walk, but there are some sections that go up to a 12% incline on that second loop. They don't recommend that you do anything with accessibility mobiles or anything like that on the second loop, but the shorter loop you can. There's educational information along both of them. It is absolutely, totally free. So there's no reason not to stop. It only took me probably about 25-30 minutes to do the entire thing, and that was with me talking to you guys, so you can quickly go around here and see everything and also consume the information, and it is totally worth it. Remember guys, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. I had a great time showing you this small stop today, and I hope you enjoyed coming along. I hope that we all got some brain wrinkles out of this one because, well, it's pretty fascinating. Till next time, bye!